Welcome back to Michael Tells. This is the channel where we listen to all kinds of stories, wild ones, messy ones, the kind you don't forget. Today's one is a good one. A stranger offered a guy $5,000 to kiss her in front of her ex, and he said yes. Trust me, you're going to want to hear how this goes. Quick thing before we start. The channel's having a rough patch right now, so if you drop a like or a comment, it really helps. Takes 2 seconds. All right, let's get into it.
The first time Reid talked to me, I was pretty sure she was running some kind of scam. I want to be clear about something before I tell this whole thing. I'm not the guy this happens to. I fix walk-in coolers for a living. I drove a 2013 Subaru with a transmission that sounded like a coffee grinder full of gravel. Nobody offers a guy like me $5,000 for anything. So when it happened, my first thought wasn't, this is the start of something. My first thought was, okay, where's the catch, and how much is it going to cost me? Turns out the catch was a black eye and a Reid that hurt every time I breathed for about 2 weeks. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up. This was late October, a couple of years ago now. I was 28, living in St. Paul, having what you'd politely call a rough stretch. The company I worked for, commercial refrigeration, restaurants and bars, that kind of thing, lost a big contract.
And when a shop that size loses a contract, the first thing they cut is hours. Mine got cut in half. I'd already lined up a new job, better one actually, but it didn't start for 3 weeks. 3 weeks doesn't sound like much until you're staring at it, because that same month, the Subaru's transmission finally quit. I took it to a guy on the east side, and he came back with a number, 2,900, give or take, depending on what he found once he was in there. And I'm sitting there doing the math. Rent's due, insurance is due, there's a credit card I'd been feeding just enough to keep the wolves polite, and the car payment on top of it, on a car that now didn't move. I wasn't broke. I wasn't sleeping in the car. It was that other thing, the thing that's almost worse, where you know the money's coming, new job, first paycheck, 3 weeks out, but right now, today, you need a couple grand you just don't have. And every night you lie there running the same numbers, moving them around like that's going to change the total. That's about where my head was at when I ended up 2 stools down from Riley Stenson. There's a place on West 7th, kind of a bar restaurant, nothing special, decent burgers. I'd stopped in after picking up the final number from the mechanic. Figured if I was going to feel terrible about money, I'd rather do it there than in my apartment. Ordered a burger, and while I'm waiting, the mechanic calls me back. I kept it quiet. I wasn't trying to broadcast my whole life to the room, but it's a bar, and she was right there, so she caught some of it. Basically me going, yeah, no, I hear you. 2,900. I get it, I'm not arguing the price. I just can't put that together this week, man. Can it sit till the 15th? That kind of call. Then I hung up and went back to my fries. Didn't think anything of it. You have those calls in public, you forget about them. She was down the bar, working on the glass of wine, on her phone too. Minneapolis type. I can't explain it, you just know. 27 turned out. Nice looking, but not in the way that made you nervous. Normal, real. We got to talking the way you do at a bar, which is to say, about nothing. There was a wild game on. She said something about the goalie, I said something back. She asked what I did, I told her. She made the joke everybody makes. So you're the guy who shows up when the ice cream's melting. And I made the face I make when I've heard that one 400 times. Easy, forgettable. I figured I'd pay my tab and never think about her again. Then she got quiet for a second, turned her glass in a little circle on the bar and said, "Can I ask you something weird?" I said, "Sure." She said, "How badly do you need $5,000? And I laughed, right out loud, because what else do you do? I said, "Depends. Am I burying a body, or is this the crypto thing your cousin's into?" She didn't laugh. She kind of winced, like she already knew how it sounded. She said, "I heard you on the phone, the car thing. I wasn't trying to listen, you were just right there." And then, "It's dumb, it's really dumb. Just hear me out, and if it's crazy you can leave. I'll buy your dinner, we forget it." So I heard her out. Here's the deal she laid out. She had this ex, Dylan. 4 years they were together, and it ended bad. Not one big blow-up, she said, more like a slow leak. Lying, flirting with other women, disappearing for 2 days after a fight and then showing back up like nothing happened. That kind of guy. Good looking, good job, sold construction equipment,
made real money, everybody liked him. And their friend groups were completely tangled together, so she couldn't get away from him. Birthdays, weddings, every party, there he'd be. And after they split, he did the thing certain guys do. He acted like it was temporary, like she'd come back around eventually. Not chasing her exactly, just confident. Confident she wasn't really done. That's the part that got her, she said. That confidence. So a few weeks back, she'd told some people in the group she was seeing somebody new. Which wasn't true, she just said it. And now there was a party coming up. A friend of theirs turning 30, big deal, up in Stillwater. And Dylan was going to be there. And she'd painted herself into a corner, because now she had to show up with this new guy who didn't exist. That's where I came in. She wanted me to be him, for one night. Come to the party, act like we were together, meet people, and at some point, if Dylan was watching, kiss her. That was it. That was the whole job. I asked her why me? Why some guy she met at a bar? And she said that was kind of the whole point. I didn't know a single person who'd be there. Dylan had definitely never seen me. And she said, I seemed normal enough, not a creep. I told her that was a low bar. She said, given what she was asking, low bar was pretty much the situation. I said, how much? She said a number. It was in the hundreds. And I said no. Flat no. I told her, look, you seem fine, but I'm not going to walk into a room full of strangers and put myself in the middle of some ex-boyfriend thing for a couple $100. That's how you end up in a story that ends badly. And she got this look. Frustrated, kind of mad at herself, like the whole idea was already embarrassing her, and now I was making it worse. And she said, almost like she was daring herself, fine, 5,000. And I stopped laughing. I asked her 3 or 4 times if she was serious, because $5,000 was, I mean, you know what $5,000 was to me right then. That was the transmission. That was the credit card. That was the 3 weeks. That was every number I'd been shuffling around at 2 a.m, gone. One night. She said she'd gotten a bonus a few weeks earlier. Big project she'd wrapped at work. She did project coordination, commercial interiors, offices. And she was going to blow the entire bonus on this, which she admitted, to her credit, was one of the stupidest financial decisions a person could make. We worked it out like a job, because that's what it was. Half up front before the party, half after. She'd Venmo me the first $2,500 the day before. I got a ride home, the Subaru was dead, and I sat in my apartment and thought about it, and I knew. I knew it was done. But I kept coming back to the same wall, which was, this money fixes everything that's been keeping me up, and all I have to do is stand next to a woman for a few hours and kiss her once. How bad could a few hours be? I said yes.
Okay, hold on. $5,000 from a total stranger to pretend to be her boyfriend? I mean, I get it, he needed the money, but come on, be honest in the comments. Would you have said yes? Because I'm not sure I would have. Anyway, it gets worse. Keep watching.
The party was in Stillwater, which if you're not from around here, is this little river town, old brick buildings, Main Street, the kind of place people from the cities go to feel like they went somewhere. It was in an event space over a brewery, not fancy. String lights, folding tables, a couple coolers, somebody's playlist. 40, 50 people. Real friends, real hugs, real, oh my God, how are you? Not a movie, just a party. Riley picked me up, and in the car on the way up, she was way more nervous than I expected. Like, hands not quite steady nervous. She kept giving me names. Okay, that's Brooke, she's the one turning 30, do not bring up her divorce. That's Marcus, he'll talk your ear off about his boat. We met at a bar in Uptown 2 months ago, you asked for my number, I made you wait a week. She'd rehearsed a whole thing. And that's when it really landed for me how insane this was. I'm memorizing a fake how we met story in a car for a woman I'd met one time so I could lie to a room full of her friends. But we were already past North St. Paul, little late for second thoughts. Inside though, and this is the part I didn't expect, it was fine. It was actually kind of nice. I'm not a big talker with strangers, but nobody grilled me. I got her a drink, I stood next to her. Marcus told me about his boat, all of it, and I nodded. I met people, and Riley started to loosen up. And when she wasn't performing, she was actually funny. Dry, kind of mean in a way I liked. At one point, I forgot I was working, just for a minute. Then Dylan showed up. I knew it was him before she said anything. You could just feel her change next to me. Her shoulders, the way she laughed a half second too fast at something. He came in with a couple guys from the group, worked the room, hugs all around. Big presence. He wasn't glaring at me or anything. I just caught him looking over a couple times. Eventually he came over. And he was polite. That's the thing I keep telling people. He wasn't some cartoon. He shook my hand, firm, good eye contact. And then he started asking questions. Where we meet, how long's it been, what do you do, Reid? Nothing he asked was actually rude. It just felt like he was sizing me up. Refrigeration, huh? That's steady work, I bet. Little stuff like that. I didn't take the bait. Honestly, by then, I just wanted to get through the night, collect the other half, and go home and sleep for the first time in 2 weeks. So I kept it flat. Yeah, about 2 months, steady enough. Later, he was standing off to the side near the drinks, and Riley looked at me, and I knew. That was the look. That was the one we'd agreed on. So I leaned in and kissed her. It wasn't some big thing. I want to be honest about it because people always ask. It wasn't fireworks. It was just a real enough kiss that nobody in that room would think we were friends. Her hand came up to my jacket, and for, I don't know, a second, maybe 2, I completely forgot there was money involved. Just forgot. It left my head entirely. And then I remembered, and I pushed it away, because that was not what I was there for, and I was not going to be the idiot who caught feelings during a paid kiss. So I filed it under weird and moved on. I should have gone home right then. That would have been the smart move. About 20 minutes later, I stepped out to the parking lot. Needed some air. It was warm inside. I'd had 2 beers. My head was doing a thing. Dylan came out after me, and at first it was just talk. He lit a cigarette, offered me one. I said no. He asked me a couple more things about Riley, and there was something off in his voice. Softer and worse than inside. He'd been drinking more than I realized. He said something like, "She tell you about us?" And I said, "Real even." "A little, not much. None of my business, man." That was true. It was none of my business. I was a contractor. But he kept going, kept circling it. Then he said something like, "You seem like a nice enough guy. You just don't know what you're getting into with her." Said it slow, like he was doing me a favor. And I don't know why, but I kind of smiled. Not at him, just at how ridiculous the whole thing was. Standing in a parking lot in Stillwater getting relationship advice about a woman who was paying me to be there. And I said, real even, "Yeah, probably not. I'll take my chances." I think he thought I was laughing at him, and he hit me. I didn't see it. That's the thing nobody tells you about getting hit for real. It's not like a movie where 2 guys square up and dance around. It came from the side, half out of nowhere. And the next thing I knew, I was down against somebody's parked truck, and there was that copper taste, and he got in 2 or 3 more before people came pouring out the door and pulled him off. I got a split lip, a bloody nose that would not quit, a black eye already coming up, and a rib on my right side I couldn't breathe deep on without it grabbing. I felt sick, kind of shaky. I looked like I lost a fight with a truck. Which, technically. And Riley was standing there with both hands over her mouth, absolutely white, saying she was going to call the cops. She was going to call the cops. And I remember I wasn't even that mad at Dylan. I was mad at the whole thing, at myself mostly. And I looked at her and I said, and I'm not proud of it, but I said it, "You wanted him jealous. Well, congratulations." She started to cry, and I didn't say anything to make it better. I just sat on the curb with a wad of napkins on my nose, waiting to feel less like throwing up.
See, this is the part that gets me. He walked into this for a paycheck, and now he's sitting on a curb bleeding for someone else's drama. And you'd think that's where it ends, right? He takes the money, never sees her again. Yeah, not even close.
She drove me to urgent care, sat in the waiting room the whole time. They cleaned me up, shined a light in my eyes, asked me what day it was, did a chest x-ray. Nothing was broken. The rib was just badly bruised, which they told me would hurt for a couple weeks, and there wasn't much to do about it except take it easy and something for the pain. Then a list of stuff to watch for with my head. That was pretty much it. Then Riley said she was paying for it. All of it, separate from the $5,000. I said no at first, on principle, and then I thought about it for maybe 4 seconds and let her. Because, let's be honest, none of this happens without her plan. That bill was hers. She Venmo'd me the second $2,500 that night. Full $5,000, done. I did not give it back. I want to be honest about that too.
I'd done the job. The job just came with a rib, and I needed that money more than I needed to make a point. So over the next week, I got the Subaru fixed, paid the mechanic, killed the past due balance on the card, made rent, bought myself the room to get to the new job. And at work? Well, I wasn't at work. Hours were cut. But the couple guys I did see, I told them I fell moving a compressor. They didn't buy it, but they didn't push, which is the Minnesota way. You look wrecked, a guy asks once, you lie, he lets you. And as far as I was concerned, that was the end of it. Seriously, that's what I thought. I got the money, got my face rearranged, did one of the dumbest things I've ever done, and now we go back to regular life. I was even a little ashamed of the whole thing. I figured Riley and I would never speak again, and honestly, that felt right, clean. I was wrong. She texted me the next day, just, "How are you feeling?" I gave her one word, sore. 2 days later, again, something small. I was short with her again.
Then she wanted to take me to dinner. A real apology, she said. And I told her no, flat, but not cruel. I said, look, you're probably a decent person, but I don't want to be a chapter in your Dylan story. I don't want any part of that. And she said she understood. But she didn't disappear. And I want to be clear, because I know how this sounds. She wasn't some stalker. She didn't blow up my phone. It was more like, once every few days, something. A dumb photo, did the eye go green yet? That's the worst stage. A screenshot of a review for the worst restaurant in Minneapolis with no context. She had this really dry sense of humor that I kept not wanting to find funny and kept finding funny anyway. She'd send something, I'd leave it on read. That was the rhythm for a couple weeks. Then one day, I don't totally know why, I said okay to coffee. Not because I was into her, I want to be accurate about the order things happened. It was more that I couldn't figure out why she kept texting a guy who'd basically told her to get lost. And it started to bug me the way an unfinished thing bugs you. We met at a little coffee place in St. Paul, and she was completely different than either version I'd seen. No party, no performance, no fake boyfriend story to keep straight. She just told me the truth. She said the whole $5,000 thing was, looking back, one of the dumbest things she'd ever done. And then she got quiet for a second and said the part she'd figured out afterward. That if you have to pay a stranger $5,000 to prove to your ex you don't care about him, that probably means you still do. And then she just left it there. She didn't try to explain it any further than that. I kind of respected that, actually. We ended up talking almost 2 hours, and I still didn't leave there thinking I was going to date her. I left thinking, she's not what I figured. The next month or two is hard to describe because not a lot actually happened. I think that's why it worked. We didn't suddenly spend all our time together. Some weeks we didn't see each other at all. She'd text at night, she'd ask me to something, and I'd say no more than I said yes. We got burgers at that place on West 7th once, went to a Wild game, her idea, she yelled at the refs the whole time. It was one of the better nights I'd had in a while. Walked around Como after the first real snow, sat in her car outside her building one night, talking way longer than either of us planned to. Engine running for the heat, both of us pretending we weren't cold. We argued too, real ones, a couple times. She's impulsive, she'll say a thing and then have to walk it back, and she hates walking it back. And I go the other way, I just close up and go quiet, which she said was worse. She wasn't wrong. And the whole time, in the back of my head, I had this theory, and eventually I said it to her out loud, which was a mistake. I told her I thought I was just a rebound, that she was taking everything she still had knotted up about Dylan and pointing it at me because I was standing there. I said it kind of coldly too. She got quiet, said, "Yeah, maybe." And that was it. She didn't argue it, which she always argued things. And the night kind of ended earlier than it usually would have. And then she stopped texting. And at first, I'll be honest, I was relieved. First day I thought, good, finally, clean. Then 3 days went by. Then 5. Then a week. And I noticed I kept picking up my phone without really deciding to. Checking it, expecting one of her dumb screenshots to be sitting there. One day I saw this guy at a gas station wearing socks with sandals in like 20 degrees. And my first thought was to take a picture and send it to her, because she would have had a field day with it. And then I remembered I wasn't doing that anymore. I don't know, it bugged me more than it should have, and I couldn't really tell you why.
Up till then, she'd made every first move. Every one. The offer, the texts, the coffee, all of it. Her. This time, I texted first. And it wasn't romantic. There was a big snow coming in, first real dump of the year, and I remembered she'd complained forever about her tires being garbage. So I texted, "Your car gonna survive tomorrow, or are those death tires still on it?" That's it. That's the big romantic gesture. Tires. She didn't answer right away, and I sat there and I actually got nervous, which was new. I don't get nervous about a text. I got nervous about a text. She answered eventually, and after that I texted first sometimes, started suggesting things, called her a few times, drove over once or twice. At some point I stopped keeping track of who reached out first. It just wasn't a thing I was counting anymore. The first kiss cost $5,000.
So the second one had a lot to live up to, and I'm happy to report it happened after a completely unremarkable dinner in a parking lot, which feels about right for us. We'd eaten somewhere forgettable, we were standing by her car, it was cold, we'd been talking, and then the conversation just kind of ran out. Neither of us made a move to leave. This time she didn't ask me for anything. She didn't lean in, she just stood there. And I realized I wanted to kiss her, and nobody was paying me to. So I did. And after, I didn't have some line ready. I'm not a line guy. I think I just said, "Okay, that one was different." And she laughed. Of course she did. The whole way we met was so stupid that laughing was kind of the only honest thing to do. And then we both stood there in the cold, cracking up about the fact that I'd once been paid to kiss her, and now here we were. That was about 1.5 years ago. We're still together. It's not a fairy tale. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you she completed me or whatever. She's still impulsive. I still go quiet when I should talk. We still argue about dumb stuff. She barely thinks about Dylan anymore. Every now and then she runs into him through mutual friends, and nothing happens. It's just a guy she used to date. That's it. I've been at the new job over 1 year now. The money stuff from that fall is ancient history. The Subaru finally died for good, and I've got a truck now, so at least I got that going for me. And sometimes, I think about how close I came to saying no. Because I almost did. Twice. And it would have been so easy. I said yes for the money, full stop. I was completely sure it was going to be a few hours of my life I'd never think about again. A weird story to maybe tell at a bar someday. Instead, she turned into the person I call first. Something good happens, I call her. Something bad happens, I call her. Just first, before I even think about it. People ask me when I actually started liking her, and I don't know. Seriously, I've tried to figure it out. It wasn't that first night. It wasn't the kiss. Probably wasn't even the coffee. By the time I noticed it, I was already pretty far into it, and it was too late to do anything about it. I don't know. She comes over and she leaves every single cabinet in my kitchen open. Every one. Drives me up the wall. That's kind of where we're at now. It's just a regular thing. Anyway, that's what happened. Every time I tell it, I still can't believe I said yes.
So yeah, a fake kiss for $5,000 turned into the real thing. Life's weird like that. What do you think? Was it worth it? Would you have taken the money? Tell me down in the comments. I read them. And if this story kept you watching, drop a like. It genuinely helps the channel right now. I've got more stories like this coming, so hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.